Everybody's heard about the bird.
Oh boy.
Bird's the word, man.
Oh,
Well, all you expert turkey hunters out there, welcome to the Lock and Load show on the Fabulous Gun Channel platform and broadcasting on the interwebs all throughout the galaxy and the universe. We were just talking about hunting turkeys. I don't know if Dusty's going to make it in. I think he texted us a picture of one. And, but we've got all kinds of news. We want to talk about prepping, and we've got rounded up the usual suspects, to quote a movie that I liked. We've got Patrick down in around Fort Worth, Texas, I guess. I guess not too much in the news there. We heard that there was a shooting in an IKEA south of Dallas Fort Worth in a place called
Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie. Okay. And the police got the bad guy. So good job to the Dallas Fort Worth police. And got our friend Squib from Michigan. How's the cold weather treating you?
70 degrees today. It was beautiful.
Oh, man. Congratulations.
It was so nice yesterday. I did yard work and got my motorcycle out on the road.
Awesome.
Yeah, but you never know. Next week we could get a snowstorm. Patooey.
Probably will. Grand solar minimum.
You know, I always get where was Prairie? What point? I keep thinking of Prairie Junction in Nebraska.
Okay, so we got a fake news and some real news coming up. So some fake news. Stand by. Here's your fake news flash. California is going to pass a bill requiring Republicans to buy lava lamps and mellow out.
Now, do those lava lamps have to be registered, and do they have a capacity limit on those lava lamps?
I have no idea, but we have some actual news on an equally ridiculous bill. So let me play the real news flash. I'm going to do a screen share of the bill, if I can find it. Apparently, California has a bill called AB 2497, and it's basically a tax on ammo and firearms, some kind of consumption tax.
Is this that 50% tax they were talking about?
Well, I have the bill here. I don't know about the numbers. I can read it.
It was supposed to be something ridiculous to the point where it'd be so expensive you couldn't afford to shoot.
Those bastards.
Well, the point was they wanted to use the money for school violence counselors or something.
What?
Yeah, so they could like.
So they're going to have somebody in the school teaching the kids how to be violent?
No, they're going to have some kind of counselor in the school who can alert the police if there's a student who might commit violence.
Wow.
Like that'll work. I mean, how does this counselor even do that? Why ask every student as they walk in, are you going to commit any violence today? Or
yeah,
you ask,
or they flag every single person, right?
They just ask the students to rat each other out. It's just everybody that doesn't like everybody else will just rat whoever they don't like out, and then the entire school will be flagged.
Snitches get stitches, man. Snitches get stitches.
Well,
it's like our education, our Texas lottery.
All right, so let's see. Here's something from the Firearms Policy Coalition. to oppose the bill. Tax on sales, storage, use, and other consumption of firearms and ammo. So, I mean, this is basically like a poll tax. I mean, if they make you pay so you could go vote, you have to pay money before you can vote. That was declared unconstitutional because people are supposed to have the right to vote. Well, people are supposed to have the right to have a firearm and ammunition, but they're going to impose a tax on it, and it's not a fee. For it to have been a fee, it would have to be some nexus on what they want to use the money for, and the law-abiding gun owners who, I mean, have nothing to do with school violence. So, but they want to tax people who didn't do anything wrong. So it's a tax. It's not a fee, and there's no nexus. So, which is something you have to have, and basically it's like a poll tax. So, let's see. By substantially increasing the purchase price, the percentage tax of the retail sales of firearms and ammunition at the rate consistent with retail sales of other goods would alone impede the citizen's right to obtain and keep firearms in lawful self-defense. All right. Patrick, you mind if I mute you for a while because your background noise is just incredibly loud. Okay, he muted himself. So let me get back to this. And here's the text of the bill from the legislative information. Firearms, school gun violence prevention. Legislative Council's Digest. Existing sale and use tax laws impose taxes on retailers measured by the gross receipts from the sale of tangible personal property sold at retail in this state, or on the storage, use, or other consumption in the state of tangible personal property purchased from a retailer for storage use and or other consumption in that state. That's enough legal mumbo jumbo to confuse anybody. This bill would impose a tax upon retailers for the privilege of selling firearms and ammunition. That's a privilege? I thought that was a right. It's defined at the rate of, they left it blank what the rate is going to be. So they can just write in whatever number they want. They can make it 300%, 1,000%, 10,000%. I mean, there's never enough taxes, right, for the state. I mean, they're so in debt. Of the gross receipts of any retailer from the sale of firearms and ammunition sold in the state after January 1st, 2019. Oops, sorry about that. It would also impose a comparable tax, excise tax on storage, use, and or other consumption of firearms and ammunition purchased from a retailer for the storage, use, or other consumption in the state as provided. I have no idea what that even means. Taxes would be collected pursuant to the fee collection procedures law. Okay, if it's a fee, there has to be some kind of nexus. I don't see what gun owners have to do with school counseling, hiring school counselors, which is what they say they want to spend the money on. This bill would require the revenues collected from the sales of firearms be deposited in a school gun violence protection fund, which the bill would create, and the politicians would abuse, no doubt. The monies in that fund would be continuously appropriated by the Department of Justice to provide grants to schools to fund the placement of police officers on high school campuses. Okay, so kids will shoot up elementary schools instead in the future, I guess. I don't know. This bill would also require that revenues collected from the sales of ammunition be deposited in the School Gun Violence Prevention Fund, which the bills would create the monies in that fund. Yeah, I just read that. They just repeated that sentence twice. They do that in laws because they don't know what they're doing. Existing laws require a person who manufactures or assembles a firearm to first apply to the department for a unique serial number or other identifying mark as provided. A violation of this provision is a misdemeanor. The bill would prohibit a person from violating that provision with the intent to sell, manufacture, or assemble a firearm. Violation of that prohibition would be punishable as a misdemeanor or a felony. Bill would also make instrumentalities of the proceeds of that offense subject to forfeiture. So they can just take your stuff and sell it, and require the proceeds of any forfeiture to be deposited by the School Gun Violence Protection Fund. I predict that fund, if it is created, will be raided for just the politicians to spend it on whatever else they want to spend it on. Existing law authorizes the governing board of school district to establish a security department under the supervision of a chief of security as designated by and under the direction of the superintendent of the school district. Well, that's something a superintendent of the school district wouldn't have a lot of information or experience with. Existing law also authorizes the governing board of the school district to establish a school police department under the supervision of a school chief of police and to employ peace officers. Okay, so the schools get their own police department now. And so I assume the schools are going to get their own guns too, because they can't have unarmed peace officers. So the school is going to start buying guns. Wow, man. This just gets better and better. The school district, it's not just a job. It's a I don't know what it is. The bill would authorize the school defined to include a school district or county office of education or a charter school maintaining grades 9 to 12 inclusive to apply to the Department of Justice for a grant for the School Gun Violence Protection Fund to contract with, employ, or have assigned to the school resource officer as defined to be on campus during school hours, during sanctioned school events that are after school hours also. Existing law authorizes governing board of school district to provide for comprehensive educational counseling program. Well, here's the thing. I mean, 2/3, the Democrats have a 2/3 majority in the California state legislature, so they can pass all the stupid laws they want, and there's nothing the Republicans can do about it. So it's like I said, they could pass a law requiring all Republicans to get a lava lamp and to mellow out. Anyway, the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act requires a mandated reporter as defined to make a report to a specified agency whenever the mandated reporter in his or her professional capacity or within the scope of his or her employment has knowledge of or observed a child whom the mandated reporter knows or reasonably suspects has been the victim of child abuse or neglect. Under existing law, failure to make this report is a crime. So if you fail to make a report on and some child got spanked by his parents, then you're the criminal. Boy, this bill requires a mandated reporter defined to include certain school employees and affiliates, including, among others, school counselors or school resource officers, to report whenever the mandated reporter, I guess the word for that we're used to is narc, in his or her professional capacity within the scope of his or her employment has knowledge of or observes any threat or perceived threat by a pupil to use a firearm, a perceived threat by a pupil to use a firearm or any other means of force to inflict mass casualties at a school during school hours or after school hours to local law enforcement agencies or the Justice Department. Well, if there was a perceived threat, I mean, you would think that would be common sense, but these are government employees and they don't have any of that. The bill would define school for purposes of this provision include the school district, county office county office of education or charter school maintaining kindergarten. Do kindergartners make threats to like shoot up? Has a kindergartner ever shot up a school? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I saw a kindergarten cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I think the kids were basically beating up Arnold in that one. The bill would require local law enforcement agencies and department to keep records of threats and perceived threats. So anytime you perceive a threat, you have to keep a record. All right. In high school. Wow. That's going to be a lot of writing. The bill would provide that a mandated reporter who fails to report a threat or perceived threat is guilty of a misdemeanor. The bill would authorize the department, as a result of receiving a report of a threat or perceived threat, to flag an important and involved individual in a firearms registry that notifies the department if the individual tries to purchase a firearm. So a perceived threat, like somebody picks up a hamburger and throws it at somebody else at the school cafeteria. Okay. Existing law provides that information of a personal nature disclosed by the pupil of 12 years of age or older in the process of receiving counseling from school counselor or by the parent or guardian of such a pupil is confidential, except as specified. Let's see. Bill would additionally include mandated reporting of threat or perceived threat by pupil to use a firearm or any other means of force to inflict mass casualties as an exception to that confidentiality. The bill would include a change in state statute that would result in a taxpayer paying a higher tax within the meaning of Section 3, Article 8, Article 13 of the California Constitution, and thus would require the approval of 2/3 of the membership of each house of the legislature, which the Democrats now have. And that's what I was trying to say before about the difference between fees and taxes, and there's different requirements. Because this bill would expand the scope of the fee collection procedures law, that violation of which is a crime, and would create new crimes for specified retailer misconduct. For the failure of a mandated reporter to report a threat, for the manufacture and assembly of an unmarked firearm with the intent to sell, the bill would impose a state-mandated local program. Additionally, by imposing new requirements on school districts and county offices of education and charter schools, the bill would impose a state-mandated local program. I mean, all these programs that this bankrupt state can't afford. They can't even afford their methane tax on cows that I talked about a couple of weeks back. Regulating cow farts. The California Constitution requires the state to reimburse local agencies for school districts for certain costs mandated by the state. Statutory provisions establish procedures for making that reimbursement. This bill will provide that with regard to certain mandates, no reimbursement is required by this act for a specified reason. So basically, the reason that they need a 2/3 majority is because they're violating the Constitution is with regard to collecting a tax on and calling it a fee, because there's no nexus between a school district security police force and people who just buy firearms and ammo legally. All right. Well, I Then they're
Yeah,
basically. Go
it
ahead.
sounds like to me they're getting their own independent. What we have here in Texas is what we call it independent ISD, independent school district, and they have some of them have their own police department that actually only deal with the school district, but they still have the same jurisdictional requirements and duties of a city or county municipal law enforcement officer. So basically, they're going to be patrolling the school district throughout that district for truancy violations, people speeding inside school zones, and taking care of anything that goes on inside of the school district and inside of the schools, and patrolling and taking care of school security. Which down in Houston, that's what they do there. The North Texas area, we really don't have too much of that. We rely on local law enforcement for that. But in the Houston area, I was living down there, they had school district police officers. And dude, if you were speeding and they were driving down the road, they'd pull your ass over and give you a ticket just as fast as a regular local cop. And it didn't matter. They had just as much jurisdiction as a regular cop. And they sounds like the same thing going on there was what they want to do. They're just a police department for the schools.
The regular police department can't handle the job.
Yeah, basically that's what it is. Is like, you know, the department that your school district's in doesn't have the manpower or can't do the job, so there is a separate police department for that school district.
So it's like 21 Jump Street, right?
Yeah, but they're not dressed like normal kids. They're dressed in full uniforms. They're dressed in bulletproof vests.
Wait, you don't have any undercover narcs?
No, no, not at all.
We did in California.
There is no. I know what you're saying. You would think, hey, yeah, let's send him in. Let's bust the drugs. No, there's none of that. They dress like normal cops. They're in the school district, in the building during the day. They're outside in the parking lot when the kids are coming to and from school. There are cop cars on the way to and from school with various officers, and they'll have, you know, like,
I had a narc try and get me to sell him drugs, which I never did sell drugs, so I don't know why he tried to get me to do that. But they were undercover narcs, and like in one of my classes, the teacher like basically ratted him out in front of the class, you know, and just started yelling at him because he didn't like not having narcs in his class pretending to be students.
Yeah, I've never seen that here in North Texas. Going through my high school, there was never none of that. The only cops we had on campus were uniformed officers from our city. But down in Houston, when I went to tech school down there, those school districts there had their own police departments, and those cops had their own cop cars, and they had the same jurisdictional rights just as a regular city cop or a county cop. And they could do everything a regular officer could do. And that's how some of the bigger cities in Texas work, which sounds like to me California is trying to do the same thing.
It sounds to me like they want to. Well, Texas? How did Texas have a separate firearms and ammunition tax to pay for all this crap?
Oh well, it's all on it. Well, since it's its own police department, that's done on our property tax, because property taxes fund the school districts, and so that would be budgeted from the property taxes.
Yeah, well, that's not what they're doing here. That's why they need 2/3 vote.
We also have in Texas the lottery, our state lottery. Our state lottery funds that we get from the state lottery go towards the school districts, so the politicians say, but we've never really had proof of that.
Yeah. They pretty much dump that stuff into the general fund and spend it on whatever they want.
Yeah, that or we have what we call in our state, we have what we call a rainy day fund, to where if the state is actually behind on its bills,
I don't think there's a state in the union that isn't behind on its bills.
We're pretty much, if we are behind, we're not behind by a lot. We've got enough cash. We've got enough cash to where we get from our state taxes, but we don't have a state tax at all. We have a sales tax, and we have a gas tax, and pretty much everything's paid for on those. We have property taxes, sales tax, gasoline taxes, and they've got enough cash. And not to mention the toll roads. The toll roads, they're supposed to be private companies, but our former governor, Rick Perry, pushed for those big time. And yeah, that's going straight to the state. I mean,
well, a lot of people are moving from California to Texas.
Yeah, and that's the problem. We have a problem with their bringing their crap here. And
their left wing.
Yeah. I mean,
their lava lamps and all that shit.
It is a problem, and we're trying to fight that literally tooth and nail right now. It's like literally this next election is very critical because it's very easy for Texas to turn blue in the next election. Not in the governor's race, but in terms of other cities, which the only cities that control the state is Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston, and El Paso. El Paso, not so much, but Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston are the big ones. And that's where all of the Dallas, Austin, Houston is where it's the big liberal Democrat haven. Fort Worth, not so much. Fort Worth's a lot of old Republican money. They don't want nothing to deal with that crap. But it's changing because they just passed a whole bunch of laws recently that I never thought they would ever pass. You can't smoke in a bar in Fort Worth.
Well, yeah. I mean, I get people blow smoke in my face. I get like violent. So.
Well, but you go into a bar, you're drinking beer and you're drinking.
Yeah, it's against the law to do that in Hawaii too, but people still smoke in bars after they pass the law. I mean,
oh God, Dallas, no, hell no. That's a you will get fined. You will get kicked out of the bar. The bar will lose its license. It is a no. You light up a cigarette in a bar in Dallas, shit, it is. You are thrown out of that place in a heartbeat. I mean, it is no. They don't play with that crap here. It is ridiculous. They got to have special ducting, special AC units, all this ridiculous crap. I'm like, dude, if you go to a bar, you're going to deal with cigarette smoke, cigar smoke.
Yeah, that's why I don't go to bars. I used to, and whenever I would come out, I smelled like a cigarette, even though I don't smoke. And right. I mean, your clothes would, because that stuff just sticks to your clothes. And but
that's what you know, and that's what you knew when you were going there. And I feel like you should be able to do you should be able to do what you want to do there.
Well, but if the state passed a law that says you can't, then
well, the city did, not the state. The city's
in Hawaii, the state did. So, but
it's not a Hawaii. It's a city thing. And I honestly thought Fort Worth was like, the last holdout of freedom in this country, was because the people in Fort Worth thumbed our nose at everything. Like, hey, the government want to tell us this? Fuck you, kiss my ass. Fort Worth starts work at 8 o'clock in the morning, stops at 12 o'clock, starts work at 1 o'clock for back work at 1 o'clock. They got a 1 hour lunch and stops at 5 o'clock in the evening. I mean, literally, it's done. And Dallas is totally opposite, 24/7. It's it's like New York City, just on a smaller scale.
Well,
Dallas doesn't sleep. Fort Worth does. It's polar opposite, and we're only like literally 50 miles apart.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I don't have too much sympathy for smokers because I can't take tobacco smoke myself anymore. It used to not bother me, but I have health issues and I can't deal with tobacco smoke. If somebody starts smoking in front of me, I'll just consider it as a physical assault, and I'll react pretty much like somebody just threw a punch. So whatever I will. I mean, my whole condominium is like a non-smoking registered with a state building. It's like a I don't know if it's a misdemeanor or felony to light up a cigarette here, but somebody did once. They had just moved in and didn't know, in spite of like 100 no smoking signs everywhere. And man, I like unloaded on them. But,
I think if you're outside, it's like it's outside.
Well, basically, they set up a smoking area that is a designated smoking area where people can go. The problem was people would just walk out on the lanai and light up, and the smoke goes straight up and just attacks everyone in all the other units, because I mean the smoke just rises up to somebody. I mean, it basically spreads into all the other units in the building, and if somebody has a health issue, I mean, anyway, they actually got a lawyer to register this whole building as a designated non-smoking building. And so if somebody lights up in the building or on the lanai, it's like a crime. I mean, the police aren't going to come. The police aren't going to come, but it'll start a fight if I see them.
Yeah, and in Dallas, you have to be 20 or 30 feet away from any door that enters or exits the building to smoke.
Yeah, there was one guy at the bottom who would just always smoke, eat no matter what, and he wound up getting just evicted for smoking.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. On his own patio. Wow.
Inside the house. Yeah, inside the condo. Yeah.
Inside. Yeah. Wow. That's kind of screwed up.
all the units are connected though through the dryer exhaust system.
It's an apartment complex.
Yeah, and so I mean, I could tell when he was smoking. I would start coughing. So
really,
but he had lived here for like 20 years or something, and he was just a renter. I mean, he was renting, but he had lived here for 20 years, and I didn't have anything personal against him at all, but he kept smoking, and they fined the owner of of that unit that he lived in, and the fines kept going up. It starts like the first time is $150, and they keep going up. And I think they were getting $2,000 fines every time he smoked. And the owner just said, "I've had enough of these fines. You get out."
Well, yeah, I mean, the owner of the building's gonna do what they gotta do, but I mean, it's like each unit in where I've lived in apartment. I've lived in plenty of apartments here in North Texas and in Houston and in Florida and in New Mexico, and they were all their own independent units. I mean, yes, I had people above me and below me, but I mean, if I smoked a cigarette in my apartment, it didn't go into the apartment above or below me, or even if I was outside, it never went in there.
Yeah, I used to feel, to me, before I had heart surgery, it used to feel, I mean, I'm not as bad, it doesn't bother me as much anymore. It still bothers me, but before it felt like my lungs were on fire. If somebody started smoking in the building, it felt like my lungs were burning, literally, like they were on fire. And I would just call and complain, and they couldn't do anything until they actually registered the whole complex, and they had to go through a legal process with a lawyer, to register the building as officially designated non-smoking buildings, and so anyway, if somebody does that here, I mean, that's what'll happen. I mean, but yeah, I never saw anybody evicted before for smoking, but yeah, it happened.
That to me kind of just, I mean, because I mean, look, I'm okay with cigarettes, cigars, in your own apartment. It's your own house, because that's your house. Okay. I mean, I understand if you're getting
all the owners got together and had a vote to do this.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's like an HOA, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
if they told me I couldn't do it in front of my house, I'd be like, fuck you. It's my house. I'm paying for it. Fuck off. And I'm going to do it because I'm outside. And you can smell it in your house that's next to me, which I'm standing right next to, which is 6 feet from my house. If you can smell it in there, there's a problem with your fucking home, and you need to take it up with the fucking builder who built the damn place.
No,
And,
there's not a problem with the home. My neighbors live.
Oh, I know.
Their back window's 40 feet away from my back window, and I can smell every single time the breeze picks it up and blows it right into my house. But they have a house and we have a house, so there's nothing I can do. Just like I can play loud music over here, and there's not really a whole lot they can do. But now we rent this house. If our landlord said no smoking inside the house as part of the rental agreement, that's kind of like the HOA thing. So it really just depends. And you've got to decide too what you want to do. If we tried to call the police every time on the neighbors, all the police can do is go over there and say, hey, they can smell your cigarette smoke. Literally. Same thing with the dogs. If we had 2 dogs in the backyard barking, the neighbors can call the cops over here 10 times in a day. The cops aren't going to do anything except say, hey, people are complaining about your dog's barking. They'll come back 20 minutes later and say, hey, we got another complaint, your dog's barking. After a while, it becomes a harassment. But then you got to decide, these are the people you got to move or live next door to. So what do you want to do?
Well, when you're renting, it's easy. You just move.
Well, no, what I mean is, in the same sense they could complain about our loud music, we can complain about their cigarettes, and we can just turn this into a war, or we can just learn to deal with it. My wife and I don't like it, but we understand it's their property. They have a right. They don't control the wind stream. But still, in certain circumstances, like your building, you guys are paying for certain. I'm sure they probably don't allow cars with loud exhaust there or things like that. There's different things that you're paying for. So it just depends on where you're living and what you're paying for.
Right. Well, again, all the owners got together and had a vote on whether to do this or not, and the building was registered with the state as a designated non-smoking building. So, I mean, it's a crime to, I don't know if it's a misdemeanor or felony, but it's definitely breaking the law to smoke in the building or on the lanais or anywhere except the one designated area for smokers. So I didn't mean for this to turn into a smoking chat. I don't know how we got on it, but
oh no, it's about a right, the right that people had, just like we have the right to bear arms. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I was standing outside the Queen's Hospital one time, and after just meeting with my thoracic surgeon. After just an appointment, they check up on you a couple of times after the surgery to make sure your scar heals up, and then they're all done. And so I was standing outside waiting for a ride, and some guy started, 2 guys started smoking right outside the area where all the cardiac patients were. And so, I mean, I started yelling at him. And I swear, it's the easiest way to set me off is just smoke right in front of me. You're gonna have, standing outside of a hospital with a bunch of cardiac patients smoking right in front of them has got to be the dumbest thing. I mean, it's people don't think. And it's just like that's like to me, it's like they're assaulting my lungs, and maybe legally I can't punch them in the face, but
Yeah, but you're outside. You're outside in the air. That's where I'm like, okay, because I will take this
outside of a hospital. Outside of a hospital, right?
Yeah,
in a patient loading area.
Patrick, in general, most people who smoke are inconsiderate of everybody but themselves.
No, I'm pretty considerate. If you say, hey, can you move down a little bit and be polite, I'll be like, all right, no problem, or walk away.
I've seen people smoke in places where there's no smoking. They don't give a shit. They flick their cigarette butts everywhere. They don't give a shit.
My experience is that you could put a gun to a smoker's head and say, the next time you light up, I'm going to blow your head off. And they can't help themselves.
And don't get me wrong. I understand what it's like to smoke. I smoked cigarettes for a couple of years, and I get it.
I need to quit. I really do. I really do.
Well, it's everybody's different. For me, it was easy to quit because really it's, whatever. But the whole thing is, I tried to be as considerate as possible when I did smoke because I had a non-smoker background. If you have people that start smoking when they're 12 or 13,
Oh yeah, yeah.
by
No,
the time they're 30, they don't have a non-smoking background. They don't give two
Right.
flying Fs about anybody who doesn't smoke. And you could say whatever you want to say, but if you've lived your whole life smoking and you're around other people that smoke, you don't know what somebody who's never smoked and never will.
And you are correct. You are correct. Yes, I agree with you 100%.
But I'm not saying that people shouldn't have the right to buy cigarettes and smoke. I really don't care. I can't stand the smell of the stuff myself. I wasn't a very good smoker when I did smoke. It was.
Even before I did, I'd be at a NASCAR race and I'd smell somebody lighting up a nice cigar and it's like, ooh, that smells good.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's just certain things and other people, it doesn't bother them. And you know what? Like inside your home, if you smoke cigarettes inside your home, you know what that does to the paint and the furniture and everything else.
Yeah, I don't do it inside the house. No
right,
way.
but that's just it though. You own that house. You own that house and you don't want to ruin your house, but you don't mind blowing it into your neighbor's house. You see what I mean?
I tell you what, if it got into my neighbor's house, which is amazing, but you said they're 40 feet away and they can smell it.
Their back window to our back window should be about 40 feet.
If one cigarette gets into my neighbor's house, which is 6 feet away, I would be amazed because these houses are brand new and they are sealed up tighter than a freaking
It's not about
drum.
being sealed up. If your window's open and his window's open or whatever, but what I'm saying though is that's you're looking at it from the standpoint of I don't want to ruin the inside of my house, but fuck his house next to me. You see what I mean? And I'm not saying the smoke is really going to turn his paint yellow. It's blowing all the way across, but they will smell it. They just will. Just like if they were grilling a steak and it blew towards your house, you'd smell that steak if your window was open. It's the same. Right?
Well, that's quite a bit more amount.
I'm just telling you.
I know what you're saying, but
just want to say hi to Jared out there in the external chat on YouTube. He says he's studying.
He's got the tests that I know he was studying for a couple days ago that he's trying to pass. So, Jared, I hope you do good on your test, man. I know on Saturday you were studying, and I heard you and Dead Horse and the other fellow on the chat going on. So hope you pass your test, and if you got any more, hopefully you're going to do good on your next one.
All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about something else other than smoking.
I want to Hawaii.
Well, I cough because I have a cold, not because anybody's smoking. I'm about 92% recovered, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the utopian aspects of prepping because I saw this movie, this DVD, which I've seen before, but when I listened to it with the director's cut. Well, I talked about this with you, I think, on this show a little. Logan's Run.
I saw the end of that a couple weeks ago. I've seen bits and pieces of it over the years.
Yeah, well, I thought the whole concept of it was interesting, and I wanted to talk about that in relation to like prepping and the whole concept of what people think prepping would be like if the shit hits the fan, or there's like a nuclear. As in the film, it's a post-nuclear war biodome near Washington, D.C. And there's a lot of interesting things about this film. I guess people have like a certain concept of how prepping is, or how the world will be if the shit hits the fan. People think, and this particular concept was these survivors are all living in a biodome, and but it's a society that's set up because they have limited supplies to feed everyone. That so basically to basically keep a healthy population, people only get to live to be 30 years old, and then they're killed. So,
I thought it was just when they finally reached 30, it's like, hey, Yeah, we want to keep population under control. So once you hit 30, we're just going to terminate you.
Well, I mean, yeah, they want to keep the population
I didn't
under
think it was-
control because the biodome was only so big, and they only had limited food
Okay,
and
'cause
supplies.
that was not I've seen like bits and pieces of the film over the years, and like I've tried to catch it from start to finish, and I never really have. And
Well,
you know, it was made back when my dad was a kid. You know.
yeah, it was one of the first sci-fi with movies with special effects way before Star Wars. And
Oh yeah, man.
but what was really interesting was I think it was 72 or I'm not sure, something like that.
Early 70s, I know that. Yeah.
But the interesting thing was, sorry,
Damn smokers.
it's not the smokers. It's just a cold.
I know. I'm just stirring up stuff.
Right. So it was basically interesting because the protagonist was basically his job, Logan 5, was to kill people as soon as they turn 30.
Yep. He was a
So
Sandman.
He's a Sandman. He's the bad guy. And you may not know this, but Logan's Run was the first film to use the concept instead of killing people when they're 30, they didn't kill anybody. They terminated runners. So terminating someone came from Logan's Run, not Terminator. Because Terminator was in, 82, 84, something like that. And but the first Terminator was basically the Sandman terminating runners.
No, I always thought the first Terminator I always thought the first Terminator was in Westworld.
What year was that?
Yul Brenner. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what year Westworld was, but I always consider him like the first Terminator.
Yeah, it was probably 70, 71, 70.
Well, anyway, so the bad guys are the protagonists that you're following along. Mr. York with his English accent living in Washington, D.C. And for some reason, there's a guy with an English accent as the and who was trying to fake an American accent, apparently, badly. But it was really, there's a lot of interesting things about it. And I thought one interesting thing I noticed is when they finally breaks out of the biodome, passes through all the deep freeze machine box. The actor with the silver costume, being a machine he has to fight him to get out. But when he first sets foot outside the biodome, and him and Jeannie Agutter, his co-star, the female lead, they're like, well, what's that bright thing in the sky? It feels warm. And they had never seen the sun before because they had been for generations and generations. I mean, he's Logan 5, so at least 5 generations in a biodome. They didn't know what the sun was. And so they had really no idea what the outside world was like. And another thing that was interesting was that how they how sex was in this biodome. You basically just turn on the computer and put your name in the hat, and then somebody appears is like teleported to your room, and then that's how you have sex. And they didn't when they actually got outside the city and actually saw an old person for the first time, he was talked about his mother and father, and they didn't know what a mother or a father was, because sex was just something that there was no concept of a family. I mean, everybody died when they were 30. And so it was basically everyone was raised by a computer controlled the entire society.
They saw the Lincoln Memorial. They walked into the Lincoln Memorial. They go, who is this?
What is that? And then they had, of course,
Logan goes, I guess this is what people look like when they're old.
Yeah, and then there was the scene in the graveyard where they can read like the gravestones, and it says, "Beloved a husband or beloved wife, and they didn't understand even what that meant. Because there was no family. There was like this society, the computer and raised everyone. I mean, everything that they needed was in the palm of their hand, and they had their life clocks. And I think they started out as yellow, and then and until as children, and when they get hit like 14, they turn blue, and then when they got hit like 18, they turned green, and when they hit 25, they turned red, and all the people's clothes matched their life clocks more or less, all their costumes, and it was and so the whole society was structured to survive and endure an apocalypse and it was like a completely socialist controlled computer program, like a socialist computer controlled everything, and it said what the rules were, and it said who lived or died. Of course, they didn't tell anyone that they were going to be killed when they were 30. The lie was that they could be renewed, but by going through Carousel, which was like this arena event, but nobody ever actually survived.
Right, and that's because I mean, it's just like you said, the way the computer controlled society and the socialistic aspect of it, and the Sandmen were
They're like
Gestapo.
Nazi SS. Yeah, they're Gestapo.
Yeah, the Gestapo, the KGB. They were the state police that took care of. And even when their time was up, they were subject to the same thing. But
they believed there was a chance of being renewed in Carousel,
right.
But nobody ever knew, and only the computer knew how many people had escaped. And so it figured that because there were like over 1,000 people that it couldn't account for, that it had to send a Sandman to break the city seals and find out where this place called Sanctuary was. And it was this concept that people were looking for called Sanctuary, because they didn't want to die when they were 30. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody thought about it until they hit 30. And then
and not only just not did everybody think about it, but only a few of it. It wasn't just everybody thought about it. A handful.
And when you think about also when like if there was just a nuclear apocalypse, there was just a nuclear war, the Sandman would prevent people from going outside, because the outside would be contaminated with radiation too. So so their job was to keep people from going out of the biodome. Nobody was allowed to leave the biodome, and until this computer authorized one Sandman to leave the biodome, and the only survivor that York's character Logan 5 found was Peter Ustinov, a pretty good actor and writer on his own. It's basically an old guy standing in the Congress on the Senate floor. And that's where one of the Sandmen catches up. His friend Francis catches up with him, and they have this fight. And they're like using the flagpole as a weapon, and they're fighting on the Senate floor. And the girl, the lead character, she really believes that there's a sanctuary, and the whole. And then when they go back and try and tell everybody that there's life outside the dome and you don't have to die when you're 30, and nobody believes them, and the computer interrogates, basically does like a mind scan, and he tells the computer, and they basically that they tried to do this with like this. They actually created a hologram of the actor, Peter York, I think is his name. And what was it? Michael York. I don't remember his first name.
He was Basil for the younger crowd in Austin Powers.
And
Basil Expedition.
But they did they actually created a hologram, and that was one of the effects that didn't work, because they actually created a 3D hologram and to represent the computers extracting his mind and interrogating him. And so there was actually a three-dimensional hologram on a desk that looked exactly like the actor. But when they put that on film, it was only two-dimensional or even one-dimensional. And that particular effect didn't work the way they wanted to. But it wasn't critical for the film. I mean, there was this, basically his head on a desk saying, "There is no sanctuary." And the computer the computer had, that was against the established facts, because the computer had established that there was 1,200 people that had escaped somehow and had not been terminated, and so they had escaped the city somehow. And of course, I think most of them had ran into this that machine, Mr. Box, in the silver robot that basically froze everyone and saved them as potential food or something. And but Michael York's character was saying basically there is no sanctuary, and the girl wanted to believe that there was a sanctuary. And it's like something that people are they want there to be some hope, and that's what sanctuary was. It was hope. And if you get into the whole, like if you saw Mad Max Fury Road, where he says he says hope is a mistake. Hope is a mistake. And in the end, they were fighting for redemption, some kind of redemption. They didn't have any hope. At least Max never did. He said hope was a mistake, and it was almost the same theme but phrased slightly differently, because the girl, Jenny Aguilar's character, she didn't want to believe that there wasn't a sanctuary. She wanted to keep going until they found sanctuary, and Logan realized that it didn't exist. And so I think that to a certain extent, that has something to do with why prepping has a certain amount of appeal, because people think about what the future could be like, and it's a way of escaping the reality of what things are, and whatever the main thing that brings you down in this life. I mean, it's a way of not prepping, but thinking about what happens when the shit hits the fan, or there's an apocalypse and the world changes overnight or due to some event. Then it's just a way of escaping. It's kind of escapism, which I think is why people like, doomsday preppers. It's kind of an escape from what the day-to-day reality is. And yeah, day-to-day reality could be drudgery, boredom, or just stuff that you have to put up with that you don't like putting up with, or stuff that you have to do that you don't like and that you think you might not have to do if the system comes down for some reason, whether it's natural, man-made, or whatever. And so that's what I got from this. It was almost like a prepper movie, because, I mean, this is a post-apocalyptic biodome after World War III, and right in Washington, D.C., pretty much. And they only could find one survivor in the whole city. They had no concept of what life used to be, but everything in the city was like, they had a lot of new concepts that actually that were in this film that at the time in 1970 that didn't exist, that were in this film. Like they had part of it was shot in like a shopping mall. Some of the large city shots were actually a shopping mall in Dallas, and this was before shopping malls were commonplace. And also another thing they had was like there was a scene like in a gym with like pool and a jacuzzi, which may seem run of the mill, but they didn't used to have a 24-hour fitness on every block in the 70s, or Bally's Fitness. That stuff didn't exist back in the 70s. So these are all like new concept of a different kind of life that, to some extent, that it started coming true, but it was just very. I thought it was, when you stop and think about it, it's a very kind of a. If you get deep into it, it's like a prepper kind of a movie, and it makes you think.
I actually kind of think how things are going to turn out if the whole world went to shit. That, you know, initially humans will start out as, okay, wherever you're living at, it'll be a grab for power where you're living at in your neighborhood. And that neighborhood will be your kingdom or your land and your vassal. And then you'll have some sort of lord vassal type feudal system, because of what we'll go through. I mean, maybe not. It'll eventually kind of get to that way, but I don't think it'll start out that way. But I mean, like, I got houses all down. I mean, there's 7-8 houses down on my side of the street. There's another 7-8 houses that I'm looking at right now, and then down further past the stop sign, there's another 30 houses. I mean, it would just be, there's too many people here where I'm at that it would be, you know, we're all going to be fighting. If you're going to fight house to house, that's going to be one nasty conflict. I mean, we'd all have to come together as a neighborhood community to band together to defend ourselves and support ourselves and survive. I mean, because it would be the only way, because there's no way. I mean, it would just be a bloody bloodbath. I mean, yeah, gangs could take over and whatever and run rampant, but I mean, with, you know, the firepower, with what we would think most Texans have inside their homes, that would be a very stupid and unwise thing to do. And we would kind of get together and, hey, have a meeting, you know, civilized at the beginning. Now, I'm not saying it towards years, many years later, if we were still together, that may not end up like a lord vassal type system, the feudal system in the medieval ages. I mean, it very well could be, but I mean, at the beginning, I don't think it would start out that way. I think we could easily come together and pool our resources. And
how would you do that if the communication grid is down? If you can't communicate unless you're standing right next to somebody?
We would all have to go house to house. I mean, literally, the next house next door to mine is literally 6 feet from my house. I mean, I can go knock on my neighbor's door, and I can go to the left of me. I can go knock on his door, and I could walk outside my driveway, across the street, and knock on their door.
Well, the thing in Logan's Run, it because it was a biodome, it was like it had to be set up in advance, or basically, you know, all these people are going to be in the biodome to survive, and so they'll survive. If people get moved into a biodome, that's like not a little thing. They're going to be living in the dome.
To go on that concept, there's literally probably 2,000 houses in my neighborhood. Just to give you an example, I mean, there's maybe not even that much. There might be 1,500 to 1,000.
But you're not separated from the outdoor environment.
No. Even though we do live in a rural aspect part of the Metroplex. I mean, this is a very newly developed area in the Metroplex as far as residential areas go. But I mean, the way they pack houses here, I mean, the neighborhoods are literally anywhere from 500 to 1,000 houses in one neighborhood and more. And that's just the way they are. They don't do this. I mean, they take several hundred or several thousand acres and they build as many homes on these quarter-acre lots as possible. And it would be kind of individual community states within a state.
How would you organize? Just let's take you. How would you organize your 500 house area if there's no electricity.
Well, we literally, I mean, get people to go door to door. You know, I mean, you get a large enough group of people that was, hey, you know, let's be calm, let's be civil, let's not go World War Z on things. You know, we're still human beings. We know what happened. We know the life before. We know we're in a shitty situation now. Let's kind of work together and let's pool our resources to help each other. But we still let's get back to the way that we were before. Let's fix the situation.
Well, that brings us to, like, you know, what type of event are you dealing with? And
not everybody's going to be that way. Not everybody's going to be that way. There's going to be plenty of people in all these homes that do not want to do what you want to do. I mean, that's and eventually it'd be like, okay, community rules, get the fuck out. You know, we build a wall around our community or whatever, like to do in Walking Dead, and shoot, shuck them to the walkers or whatever. I don't know. You know, I mean, I would hope we could deal with people, and hopefully people would be like, hey, no, let's look, we're living. This is my family. This is my wife. This is my kid. Let's all live. Let's be civil. Let's drag our way of life and our sanity and our civilness as long as we can before we get back to the feudal system of the lords and the vassals and all this crap for the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages and nastiness that we don't want to ever experience again in society. I mean, I think there's enough educated people in the world that would understand that and not want to go back that way. But
right. Well, let's just take what happens if, like, there's a solar event or an EMP or just a solar event with the Earth's diminishing magnetosphere, and all the transformers blow and or are taken out. I mean, that would take like years. I mean, decades to replace. I mean, because and so you're talking about how are these people going to survive? The world won't be the same without electricity, and so if you're instantly chucked technologically into the Stone Ages.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. Yeah, we would be thrown back in the 1800s. There are people with skills still to this day. Even though I know a lot of people think that there are not, there are a lot of people still to this day that do have the diminishing skills and the diminishing knowledge of how things were done way beyond. I mean, my mom knows how to do things that I have never done in my life. And my mom lives in my house. I mean, she lives, we take care of her. She can't live on her own no more. And she knows how to sit there and do things that I have never, ever done. My mom wrung chickens' necks when her grandmother asked her, what did she want for dinner that weekend? I wanted fried chicken. She'd go out there, wring that chicken's neck, and she'd pluck the feathers. She knows how to do that. She's done things that I've never done. And there are plenty of people around here that do know that. Not saying everybody does, but you know, we come together as a community. We come together as a group of people, just like we do as Americans, and we work through the problem, and we learn from others, and we pass that knowledge on down, which I am trying to do with what I know how to do in my profession, and I'm also trying to learn what my parents have done in the past and try and pass some of that knowledge on down to my son and so forth, so they don't forget, so they don't know, so they're not totally clueless.
So here's one thing I wanted to ask Squib, because I know he knows something about it. So if all the and if Dusty came on, I had a question for him about farm tractors. But so what year, if there was a solar event that took out like all the computer chips and transformers, what year, basically that would kill pretty much every car before what year?
Approximately 1982. There would be a few exceptions. Those would be your higher end model vehicles, but approximately 1982.
Yep, I
So-
concur with that.
So you'd
'Cause I
have
work on
to
cars.
you'd have to find cars that were pre 1982 in order to have one that would work.
Well, assuming it didn't have an effect on anything else. I mean, if it fried batteries, there'd be a whole lot of problems there. See, the thing is, though, I mean, okay, I see what you're saying about everybody's got some sort of a skill and that sort of thing, but the way I see it is there's going to be a whole lot more people that are useless in this sort of scenario. There's going to be somebody with the medical skills, and there's going to be somebody with farming skills, and there's going to be somebody with mechanical skills, and somebody with security skills, and somebody with, being able to do like these old things that are manual and stuff like make lye soap or pluck a chicken. Yeah, sure.
My mom knows how to do it.
Okay, but and to some extent that stuff can be bartered and traded for up to a certain point. The other 99% of society are going to be the deadbeats. They're either going to be the people that die in a matter of days or weeks because they can't do anything for themselves, or they're going to be the people that turn into the looting mobs in a matter of days or weeks because they have nothing and they have nothing to offer. And these are the people you need to worry about, because you're either going to have them beat on your door and say, please help us, our children are starving. And you have to decide, do I feed their kids, or do I feed my kids? And it's not an easy decision, because you, right in front of your own children, you have to turn these people away. You also have to worry that if you do let them into your house, they don't ever leave. And if they could be bringing anything with them, we don't know if it's a pandemic or blah, 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 blah. The other thing is, if word gets out that you're the guy who has medical knowledge, or you have firearms, or you have a working generator, or whatever it is, right? If word gets out, more and more people are going to come to you for that. And if you don't give it to them, there are going to be some people who are desperate, and they are going to resort to violence to try to take it from you. So when you get through the people who just aren't going to survive no matter what, they're either going to commit suicide, they're going to get on drugs or alcohol or something to kill themselves, or they're just going to waste away to nothing. And then you get past, you've somehow or another, I guess, weed out all these mobs of these people that are going to steal and loot. Because if enough people who have things fight back, fight to keep what they have, and fight to protect their family, they'll do a lot to take down the number of these looters. Then you're going to see the smoke clear, and the kind of society, I think, is where you're going to have people barter and trade for things. And maybe somebody, say like your mom, maybe she can't defend herself, or all she can do is these old-fashioned things, but she can't fix a car or that sort of thing. So maybe that she's somebody that, because she's family and you love her and trust her, you move her in with you. So now she has something to offer, not only to your family, but now gives your family something also to offer, but you can offer her protection. I mean, you know what I mean? There's just a lot to it.
Well, what I was interested in, as far as like farmers go, is like what year did all the like tractors and harvesters and stuff have computer assisted, features?
That would have been...
and what year like the old tractors?
You're not much further than the 82 to 88 mid 80s. I mean, it's
depending. Depends on the size and the model and that. So I mean, the make and whatnot. I mean, there were still diesel engines with mechanical fuel pumps in the 90s.
Yeah, and there still are.
Yeah,
there still are that's running from the 1930s still to this day.
Well, but I'm talking about brand new production.
Yeah,
brand new production. So okay, so secondary things like generators or tractors or pumps, or even to some extent delivery vehicles or that sort of thing, they were regulated much later than or after passenger vehicles.
Also didn't have emissions regulations till
right.
the 90s.
Like my motorcycle's late 90s, and the regulator has a computer chip in it, but the rest of it is all mechanical. So it would get fried in an EMP. So I mean, you you'll find enough stuff cobbled together, and there are people that could probably take the engine out of something. You can get some gas to it or make some moonshine to turn into gas and get it to run a pump to pump a well or something like that. There's enough people out there that can do things like that. So, but those are the sorts of skills that you would need in a society like that. And then you would have to have people that could protect those people. Some of those people with those skills may not be able to defend themselves. It's not that they're not strong or smart. It's just they're not the kind of person that, I mean, how many people do we know out there that wouldn't even think about owning a firearm or learning hand-to-hand combat or have no military or police background or whatever it is? I mean,
yeah, like who knows the tactics on how to defend a large area of land or land mass or facility? I mean, I don't know any tactics on that other than, okay, let's try and do what General Patton did. I mean,
well, General Patton wouldn't defend anything. General Patton was attacked. He wasn't a defender.
He always said, you're constantly on the move 100% of the time. I mean, that's
the only thing you want to hold on to is the enemy's ass.
Exactly.
Even in a government takeover type scenario, a few months ago, I had an anti-gunner join Gun Channels just so he could talk to me online. And one of the questions he asked was, your right to bear arms is so you could fight against the military, but does that mean that you should have an Apache helicopter? And it's kind of like,
sure.
He was looking at it from the standpoint of, you have to have everything up to and including nuclear weapons. But the thing is, certain types of weapons, the government would not use against its own people only because the amount of damage it would do. Like if you nuked a city, now you just destroyed that entire city. You lost all the assets in that city. You've got the nuclear radiation to deal with for 10,000 years. If you gas, a large enough area, that gas could blow back in your face, that sort of thing. So the government using weapons of mass destruction against its own people probably wouldn't work out so well. So you wouldn't need a weapon of mass destruction to fight back against the government. But when he's trying to say that government aircraft could fly over your position and shoot missiles at you from long range and you'd never see it coming, so how can you fight back against that? It's been a couple months since he said that, and I'm the kind of person that if I say something or if I hear something, I think about it subconsciously or in the back of my mind or however you want to say it.
I'd like to answer that question.
Actually, sometimes I process something and the next day I think, I could have said that better. And there's other times where I process something and it could be weeks, months, whatever later that I think, and I can't say the answer on the air. But it didn't occur to me that because of my military training, I would actually know how to fight back against aircraft that the government would employ if in a government takeover situation. And my right to bear arms, the small arms that we bear, rifles, handguns, things like that, would be essential to that without me explaining how I would do it. But at the time, it didn't even occur to me, oh yeah, I know how to handle this. It just,
my answer would be the government uses certain ways to target people. It detects where the people are. Thermal imaging is one. And so if you can manage thermal camouflage, you can be invisible and they will never target you. If you can do that. They protect all the government buildings are protected by and if they send someone out after you, they're going to have thermal imaging.
And so that was something the anti-gunner was trying to bring up, that they have sensors and they can see you, and
those can be defeated if you know how to do it.
That wasn't but that wasn't what I was thinking of. I was thinking of something else.
I'm thinking like what I heard a long time ago. I was watching Discovery Channel, Wings Over Vietnam, type stuff. I
love that shit.
Yeah, I know it's cool. I'm an aviation buff, so I mean it's been in my family, and I grew up in basically the second cradle of aviation in American history. And what these guys were talking about during Vietnam was like, hey, I'm a chopper pilot flying a Cobra gunship. And yeah, you're running along the ground. I can see you. What the North Vietnamese used to do was, yeah, they're with their AKs or their SKSs or whatever other long arm they had. Long rifle they had. They eventually figured out that running away from a chopper was the stupidest thing you could do. And
they became quite good at setting traps for choppers.
They eventually stopped running, and they stood their ground right where they were, underneath a tree or something, and they stopped. And they'd shoot at the choppers with their AKs or their SKSs. And literally that could bring a chopper down back then, hitting the right spot. I mean, with a lot of firepower, but I mean...
But we're talking Hueys, not gunships.
Well, still, an Apache's the same thing. You take away the optical and the electrical. You take away the avionics package of the whole system. It's still a chopper. It's still a flying machine.
The mission is different. I mean, it's going to fly different.
The EMP goes off. Their shit's going to be broken just like our stuff's going to be broken. So, I mean, it's the same thing.
Their stuff is hardened up to a point. But we're also talking about solar effects, not just EMP.
Right. I mean, I hear it. But I mean, things like I'm just saying the basis of like, okay, hey, they know people in the higher up position notice a movement. You stop moving, hey, they may not see you. And
yeah, that's basic predator stuff. I mean, anybody that's seen a cat hunt, I mean, movement, the worst thing you could do is try and run away from a predator like a cat or something, because the movement, the movement will be the first thing that attracts them.
Yeah, and the human eye is really good at picking up movement. I mean, really.
Yeah, but I mean, with regard to like Hueys were like slow, low flying things whose mission was to go in and pick up parties. So I mean, if you're NVA, you could just pop off some smoke and try to trick a chopper into thinking that was an LZ of friendlies, and then wait till they get close enough and then blow them away. Right. And I think what another thing that the NVA did was they used tunnels.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying from the aspect of somebody looking down from a helicopter, is like what was saying, how does, like this one gentleman was saying, and I remember their conversation because I was listening in. I wasn't in text chat or anything, but I was listening in on YouTube.
If you're underground, that's how they defeated the United States Air Force. I mean, they could defeat B-52 strikes if they were far enough underground. I mean, and they had networks of tunnels, and that they were right under Tan Son Nhut Air Base. Right. I mean,
I'm just saying from what Squib was saying is like, well, when this guy asked, well, how do you beat a chopper? Well, one way of beating a helicopter is staying put. Don't move. Given the aspect of getting rid of the optical and the infrared capabilities of the avionics capabilities of the aircraft. I mean, take that away. I mean, if you're in Robinson 22, I mean, it doesn't have a FLIR system on the chopper. It just doesn't. And it just has a guy sticking outside the right side, like with the freaking AK or an AR-15 or an M60 or a Tommy gun or something. I don't know.
Minigun.
Or a minigun. I mean, which I doubt that's going to happen because there's more Robinson 22s flying around than there are miniguns in private hands of citizens. So, I mean, doubtful there's going to be a minigun in a Robinson 22.
It couldn't carry it.
I doubt it could carry the whole load. So
if you
might get 20 rounds off a shot.
Yeah, if you tried to put the ammunition for the minigun on the Robinson, it wouldn't get off the ground.
Yeah, I mean,
but actually, none of that is actually the tactic. But I don't want to get into it. But it's just there's other things to consider in this post-apocalyptic world that some people are going to have access to stuff, and some people aren't. And some of that could be the government, and some of it could be like what HVS was telling me about the rogue National Guard unit coming down the street with an armored personnel carrier, and they want your food, and
you're silver.
So when I don't know.
They want everything. It's not just bad, just everything. I mean,
this community that you're talking about, Patrick, would have to be able to defend against that as well. So you're going to
Correct,
need
yeah.
people in the community with.
Oh my God! Are you
military
going to build a
experience.
hedgehog? Are you going to build a hedgehog?
I'm not going to build a hedgehog, but
I
Patrick
would like
might.
I would like to think that we could do that, but I'm not saying it would be. It's going to work out that way. I would like to think society would work that way at the beginning,
Now,
and try and get back to the ways of old or the ways before the nastiness.
I should send 1 ounce of silver to the first panelist that builds a hedgehog.
the whole premise
If I had
of
a welder, I'd put one together in about 3 days.
the whole premise of the prepping talk tonight, though, was that your ideas for prepping for this conversation have to do with a post-apocalyptic movie. And over the weekend, I saw a post-apocalyptic movie, and it had a great piece of prepping advice in it. The movie was 1976 or 77, Damnation Alley. And it was 2 years after the Third World War, after nuclear war. And the best prepping advice that it had in the entire movie was have a bitchin' truck. Because then you can go anywhere and do anything.
But apparently it's going to have to be a bitchin' truck that's pre-1982.
Well, the actual Landmaster used a Ford Industrial Motors, a V8. It was an industrial motor, so it would be something that would run a pump or a generator, but it was stock car engine size. So I'm sure it had distributor and points and everything else. But the actual vehicle in the movie really does everything it did in the movie. It can really do in real life. Except for it didn't have a shower in it or bunk beds, but the rest of it, though.
I'm trying to. What was that scene where there was a car with a dead guy in it at a gas station?
So that's the other thing. Don't ever go to Salt Lake City in a post-apocalyptic, because apparently it's full of killer cockroaches.
Oh, right.
Everything. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to go that far north. That's for damn sure. I'm going to stay here in Texas.
They ate all the bodies. They ate the rubber off the tires. They ate the upholstery off the seats. They ate the hoses off the gas pump. They ate everything that was at all, I guess, consumable. Everything but metal and concrete. These things ate. So
I vaguely remember them running up to the top of a building to get away from these cockroaches.
They went to the department store, and it's a multiple floor department. So he takes her in on the dirt bike, and they're going up each. And when they get so far, they realize these cockroaches are coming out of everywhere. So they keep going higher and higher to try to get away from the cockroaches. And he realizes they got nowhere to go. So what he does is he busts out a window. He looks across and he sees a parking structure, and he sees the top of the parking structure. He busts out a window. He takes a crowbar. He pops the door off. He makes a ramp, and as the cockroaches are pouring into the room, they take off. They use the door as a ramp, and they launch themselves across onto the parking structure and crash the bike. And then the Landmaster comes through, blasts through, it runs over the cockroaches. They get in the back of it, and they take off, and they get the hell out of Salt Lake City. So don't stop in Salt Lake for gas in a post-apocalyptic world. Just don't. Just keep going.
Are these giant cockroaches?
No. Yeah, have you ever seen a Madagascar cockroach? The hissing cockroaches?
Yeah, the big ones that are about.
That's what they used. That's what they used in a movie. They use those as props. So the guy steps on it. He steps on it, and it doesn't kill it. He goes, "Damn, armor-plated cockroaches!" And then they start eating him.
Oh, they start. I'm gonna have to have me a flamethrower on my back.
No, they actually. The one guy was trying to get to his buddy to save him, but it was too late. But he used a CO2 fire extinguisher to get him. Freeze him or just get him to get out of his path. And when he got there, his buddy was half eaten, so he's like, "No, I'm out of here." So
yeah, I do too.
So okay, motorbikes. Is that the same deal with 1984, 1982 on them, or do they still make bikes that?
No, new bikes all have computers, but if you had an older bike, it would still be able to run, and you'd get the fuel economy and that sort of thing. So it would be something good to have in a post-apocalyptic scenario.
Or you can just take your vehicle, park it inside your garage, and put a whole bunch of aluminum foil all the way around it.
You could build a Faraday cage, and you make your garage into a Faraday cage. That might not be a bad idea.
I want a truck.
On my roof.
I want a truck with a body made out of 3/8-inch steel with an articulated steering system and a TriStar drive and a heavy-duty V8 engine. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, but you need a garage. But you need a garage with a Faraday cage if you're going to use a modern truck. I mean,
That's true.
That's the bottom line. And so I think there's and if you want electricity, you're going to have a solar panel and batteries, and all that's going to have to be in a Faraday cage too. I mean, not the panels, but the batteries and the any controller for it. It's all going to have to be in like double Faraday cages. And so, I mean, prepping is like, it's fun to think about it, but when you actually deal with the stuff, I mean, yeah, it'll be really suck after the apocalypse, the first day to like start your car and put the key in the car and nothing happens. Then you're like, oh shit.
Man,
I guess I
got radiant barrier heating, radiant barrier shielding for on my roof. Come on, man. Supposed to block out everything. Just kidding.
Well, yeah, but basically the problem that the Earth is having is the magnetosphere is weakening drastically, and in a steep curve. And if there's a solar event, it could take out a lot of computer chips and powered transformers.
Well, I'm going to ask this question to somebody coming into the late to the game, even though I'm an Eagle Scout and all that crap. Really doesn't mean a hell of beans in the world anymore in the world, but now, how do I, with a family, with a wife and a kid and a house, I've got all this stuff, but how do I buy, how do you take your funds that you got each month to buying all that stuff or procuring it? I mean, that's the thing, because I mean, it just doesn't pop out of the ground. You got to pay for it.
I know.
Right now.
I know.
So how is it that you?
Well, I remember that. I remember that. I remember that. What's her name from Oiley's show? Mouse Toes. She was always saying, if somebody comes to my house after she hits the fan and wants free stuff, I mean, I set aside stuff. I deny myself stuff every month so I can set aside this or that and
okay,
it's a sacrifice, and it's so if like you went without going to a movie for like 3 years in a row, and you didn't eat out for 3 years in a row, and you had ramen for 5 years, and just so you could save money for your preps of whatever, and people prep their own way for what they think they'll have to deal with.
And I get
different, but
now the bigger question is, I get what you're saying, and I understand that. Take a little bit, put it aside, use it for this every month or every week. Get that. Now, how is it if you understand that? Because say you're an Eagle Scout, you went through Boy Scouts, you learned this back in the old days, not the current ones. Obviously, they don't know much about doing nothing. Be prepared, taking a little bit, saving this, doing that. Now you have a wife and a kid, and your wife doesn't understand or doesn't know or thinks you're full of malarkey, and that's never going to happen. How is it you convince her to help do the same thing, other than the fact of sort of saying, this is the way it's going to be, or you get the fuck out?
I'll let Squib answer this question.
As a guy who's been married 3 times, and let me tell you, each time I traded up, and I've got a good one finally, is you just get a divorce and find somebody else.
Oh, Jesus, thanks, Squib. I appreciate it. I don't want to do that.
Well, just saying.
Well, I wanted to give you. I've said this before,
I know what you're saying, but it's easier said than done. And
all right, well, look, if you can't scrounge together the money, do all these preps. There's your best prep that you can have.
Oh no,
all the other preps. Well, whatever. Well, forget that for a minute. The best prep that you can have is good friends. Okay,
True.
because that are actually really your friends, and
everybody knows who they are.
and you can help each other if the shit hits the fan, and you'll want to help each other. And not just that's different than a prepping group. So
the problem might be 50 miles away.
So I would say that like that's a skill you could work on, making friends. I mean, I don't have that many friends myself, so I would say that's the best prep that you can have.
So your friends are 50. You're 50 miles away to get to your friends.
Yeah, one of my good friends that was
okay.
And
so is that where you would want to go if the shit hits a fan?
Actually, no. It would actually be my wife's father's house because
how far is that?
It's actually closer. It's about 20 miles.
Well, you could walk.
Huh?
You could walk if you had to.
Oh no, hell! If I had an armor plate, this fucking Jeep throw a V8 in this bitch, and freaking mount.
You would go with the first rule of the apocalypse, which is have a bitchin' truck.
Oh fuck yeah!
Okay, all right, yeah.
and a garage with a Faraday cage.
I've Mad Max my Jeep out so much you'd be like, oh.
HVS, he said Mad Max. You got to give it your seal of approval.
I mean, come on.
Why not get a war rig? I mean,
yeah, that's the whole point, you know.
Get a semi. Get a semi.
My doors. I'd take my doors off and mount my ARs to it on articulating hinges that would turn left and right. I mean, and put them where the doors mount to. Say,
Fury Road was pretty much a car chase movie. I mean, it was a car. The first half of Fury Road was a car chase, and the second half was a car race. I mean, it was all about the cars. I mean, what I really liked, one thing I liked about all the trucks is they had on the driver's side door, they had like where somebody would hang out their arm. There was always like bones of an arm and a hand, like right where people would put their arm. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But okay, so now that we've solved the apocalypse.
Well, the point is we want to work together first and try not to go ape crazy and, cutting each other's throats. Let's try the civil aspect first, hopefully. I would hope. I would hope, but I don't think it's going to work out that way.
If you want to be prepared for the worst case and you want to take the precautions and your wife says that you're crazy for doing all these things you're doing to prepare for something that won't happen, she says you're crazy, you need to turn it around and just make it that she's the one that's crazy.
Well, the problem is she won't believe it because she thinks she's the smartest one and I know what's going on.
Well, I don't know. Does she know that you're on the show like this? If so, you might want to retain a lawyer.
She's never listened to our shows.
So you're saying this show is grounds for divorce?
No, we've talked about head hogs.
If my wife listened to this, she would just roll her eyes and shake her head. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. That's what mine would do. And Imperial Walkers, I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, Jesus.
Well, that was Imperial. That was like about 3 months ago that we had that one.
It was a good idea.
That was like 3 months ago.
I think the guy from Florida, Kerry, said he preferred tanks. He preferred tanks.
Well, yeah. I would prefer an M1 Abrams over an Imperial Walker.
No way, man. Add all the way.
Oh, screw that laser gun. Hey, shit on an M1. I'll take the 120 millimeter cannon. I can outrun your laser beams. I'm just kidding. Scoob's rolling his eyes. I can tell right now.
Well, I refer everyone to the show that we had about when the whole Korean thing started happening, which I guess Trump has solved this problem almost. So.
Yeah, they're about to be unified. They're about to be buddy-buddy. into the conflict.
You know what I think happened? I think because Trump is the president, what happened is basically the embassies of Russia and China, they walked over and gave Kim Jong-un a briefcase saying, here is a complete list of the nuclear capabilities of the United States of America. This is how many missiles they have. This is where they are. And so you make your own decision about what to do. And because maybe if you get wiped out, we'll launch the missiles. But this is all the information we have on the United States of America.
Maybe if you get wiped out.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Dude, even Kim Jong-un, he's educated in the western part of the world. Dude, he has got to know we would wipe his country off the map in about 20 minutes.
I think I know, but I think they probably just gave him a complete list of this is the nuclear arsenal of the United States of America. If you want to fuck with them, go right ahead. We won't stop you. It's your decision. Well, but they can't say you can't do. They're just gonna say, here's what they've got. It's your decision. You do whatever you want. And here's all of our intelligence on the United States of America, and then he makes his own decision if he wants to fuck with us.
I mean, they do think he is a living god. I mean, the people of that country are nutty enough that believe that crap.
They're hungry enough. They're hungry enough to do whatever anybody that gives them food will do too. Because apparently, like even the top generals aren't eating anymore. So because the sanctions are biting. So I think
he's getting all the chicken to eat. He's getting all the KFC that's run in by Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, so the Dennis Rodman visits and brings them some takeout food. That's how they run the blockade.
Exactly.
That's what they had that video of, like, transferring KFC from like a Chinese cargo vessel to a North Korean cargo vessel.
Right. America's new weapon to food. Boom.
Well, they don't have any, and we do. So, but I think if he just look, I think what happened is he just looked at our arsenal, looked at his arsenal, and he'll make a pretty rational decision about what to do. He'll try and get something for it.
You would think, but I mean, there are people that are crazy, that are just that nutty. I mean, look at what goes on in our country today. Why would people do the things they do? They're just that batshit crazy. I mean, I wouldn't, if I was the leader of a country that was weaker than the United States, I wouldn't be picking a fight with us. I mean, come on. You think I'm not that stupid? I'd be like, dude, come on, buddy, like Gaddafi used to do after Reagan whooped his ass.
Well, it's like, in nature, sometimes the smaller animals just put on a big show to they puff themselves like a puff fish. It blows up really big. I mean, it really can't do anything, but they put on a good show to deter their adversaries.
Yeah, but I know. I hear what you're saying, but I mean, if I saw somebody that, like the United States, kick the crap out of some smaller little crap shithole country, quoting the president, like Reagan did with Gaddafi back in the 80s, we bombed the living crap out of Libya, and then all of a sudden Gaddafi's like, oh, okay, Mr. President, I'll do what you want us to do. And then when Bush said, hey, the war on terror, you're either with us or against us. And Gaddafi was one of the first country's leaders to say, oh, there's no terrorists here. Get him out. We don't
Gaddafi's dead now. Gaddafi's dead now.
He's dead now. He's dead now because Bush is gone. I mean, but, Bush left him alone because Gaddafi sat there and said, oh, we'll take care of the terrorists in our countries if there is any, I mean, he was one of the first ones to speak out and say, we don't do that crap. We're on your side because I know what you guys do to us. I mean, I would see that and be like, yeah, I'm not going to screw with you guys. Just like I wouldn't screw with Israel either. It'd be like, you guys been kicking people's butt for 2,000 years. I'm not about to pick a fight with you.
Well, Iran
here's a
is
piece of advice about Israel: don't fuck with God's chosen people. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. My mom said that same statement, and I agree 100% with it. But if I didn't know that fact, I'd be like, 2,000 years you've been kicking people's ass. Well, I tell you what, I'm not about to start.
They've got divorce, man. Look out.
It's just for me to go up against people that have been kicking people's butt for 2,000 years. I don't like those odds.
That's why Hitler thought when Japan joined the Axis he couldn't lose, because Japan hadn't lost a war, and before World War II Japan hadn't lost a war in like 2,000 years or something like that.
Yeah, I mean there is eventually everybody will fall, but I mean like Swibb said, not trying to get religious or anything, but I mean I believe in God and all that, Bible. But yeah, I still wouldn't screw with them. There's some hard fighting mamma jammas, I'll tell you that. They
right. Well, Israel's problem is that compared to Iran, it's just a tiny little country. I mean, the problem with Iran has a much larger population, more oil. They've got it's just a bigger country by.
Well, they don't take no from nobody. They don't put up with anybody.
Yeah, my money's on Israel. Sorry, man.
Me too, but it'll be messy if there's.
It's gonna be messy, but. Yeah, I mean, my money's on them. I mean,
well, that's why it would behoove Israel to just go into, if they had to fight another country, to go into that country and fight them and leave the mess there. Don't let it come into, because then they ain't got to clean it up.
Well, it's impossible, because basically Iran has missiles, basically through Hezbollah. They've got like many thousands of missiles already pointed at Israel, and all they have to do is say fire. And there'll be missiles falling on Tel Aviv.
I'm sure
I wouldn't worry about Hezbollah, blah.
Hezbollah, blah.
Israel's got the Patriot system, so.
Something a little bit more advanced.
Yeah, they've got Iron Dome, and they've got the advanced arrow. I don't know what version of the arrow missile they're on.
I mean.
This is
a country that, in order to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, flew 2 jets into Iran and dropped 4 bombs, dumb bombs, not even laser-guided bombs, on their nuclear power plant, blew it up, and went home. And you
don't have to convince me, Radon and Tebby. You don't have to convince me. I mean,
but without a scratch on them either.
That's balls. 2 jets, no cover, no smart weapons, no nothing, just 2 bombs each, and out of there. And what do you know? It worked. It's like take that one out of the playbook and give that to,
Well, the air defense systems have improved since then. Air defense systems have improved since then.
Yeah, and they also have our jet.
Yeah, I think they'd still get through. So.
Yeah, even if they're flying 50 feet off the ground, they're still going to get through. I mean. You put an F-15E, which I know they got. Let's just say that's the highest tech airplane they have. Put it 50 feet off the ground with, map of the earth flying, terrain following radar.
Wait, Israel has the F-35 now.
Well, not that we know of.
No, yeah, we gave them the F-35. There was a ceremony.
There's not a single one that's left Fort Worth. Trust me. They're
all. Do you want to see the video of it? I'll find. It's on the IDF Defense Force channel, YouTube channel. They've got the F-35.
Dude, I mean, I live where they build them.
Would you like to place a 1 ounce of silver side bet that Israel actually has them? Because I can show you the video of them.
How do we know it's not a CGI image, HVS? It's the internet. It's the internet. It's all fake.
Well, if you want to just play games, they've got it.
I just messed with you. But even if they had an F-15E Strike Eagle, I mean, dude, that thing is just as bad as, all get out. And that's 1990s, late 90s technology, early 2000s technology, and that's a bad mamma jamma that can just switch from bombing to air superiority mode with the flick of a switch, and just kick anything's ass.
until
The only thing that beats
until
them-
the enemies start fielding Gen 5 fighters.
The Russians ain't got shit. I am sorry, that crap's falling apart like left and right. I
Well,
mean,
China's building. They've stolen a lot of plans from through the internet off of from the Defense Department.
they can
they've
make
had-
it look like a YF-22 or the Boeing version or the I forget the other not the Boeing one, but the other one that had
Lockheed
the
Martin.
things.
Lockheed
No,
Martin.
not Lockheed. Lockheed was the
Northrop
YF-22. The Northrop Grumman version, yeah, that had the engine nacelles real far apart, and this sucker was a really wide airplane. That's what theirs looked like. It's like, yeah, they can copy the design and make the angles. That's no big deal off of a picture. You just double the size, or I mean, anybody can do that. But
No, they hacked the plans out of the Defense Department computers.
the radar absorbent material, the avionics package, the engines of Super Cruise, the materials the aircraft's made out of. I mean, and it's not just metals; it's plastics, it's carbon fiber. It's how the system's applied, how the angles attach to each other.
Wait, Squib, you can
It's
have
not
radar.
just the design.
Squib, you can build us some radar absorbing materials.
There's radar absorbing paint, but it's so heavy that the aircraft is going to struggle. It's going to affect performance. So,
No, but I could paint my Blazer with radar absorbing paint.
Well, I imagine the paint that's on the F-22 is a lot lighter than on the F-117A, which is no longer in service, which is still a cool ass fucking plane.
Yeah, you know how they shot down the F-117A? It was with low frequency.
It was a
It was low frequency.
it was
low frequency
microwave radar.
Radar, yeah.
I mean, some of that is electronics countermeasures. Some of that is materials. Some of that is angles. It doesn't make it invisible to radar. It just makes it so small on radar that they don't think it's an enemy aircraft approaching.
Correct, because of B-52,
if you
block Eagles, and then the
but
B2,
what you could do, here's the thing. When you put the stealth on the aircraft can act by itself. It doesn't need any help. All it needs is maybe a tanker in friendly airspace to refuel on the way in or on the way out, or both. When you don't have that stealth technology, you need a whole fleet of aircraft, because
Well, the F-35 deals with it by having computers defeat the missile threats.
Well, they also fly around the radar sites. Period. I mean, the radar only goes out to the phone.
Basically, the F-35 computer system can jam missiles, and it used to require a whole computer system to jam one missile, but the F-35 could jam multiple missile threats simultaneously.
Correct. Yeah. Not saying it can't.
The thing about the F-35 is that that's the one that they will send into a high threat situation, and it's like F-22. It relies on stealth, but the F-35 doesn't as much. It relies on its computers systems to defeat missile threats, it's
the whole premise behind stealth. The expense of the stealth is that you can send in one aircraft or a few aircraft to do the job of
many
aircraft, because you would have to have aircraft to come in to soften the surface-to-air missile sites, the SAM sites. Okay, you'd have to have aircraft that would fly in with the attack aircraft to jam the enemy radar. You'd have aircraft flying. We called it carrier air patrol. There's another name for it when it's not above a carrier force. But you would have fighters flying high up. Flying patrol high up. You would have all of these aircraft flying together in large groups in order to complete the mission. And if you didn't have the aircraft that were with the attack aircraft, if you didn't have aircraft going in there flying to jam the radar, or aircraft flying in ahead to take out surface-to-air missiles or AAA or anything like that, then you run the risk of not being able to complete the mission. With the stealth, if you can't see it, it can go in, complete the mission. You don't need to have fighters to protect it, because they can't see it. You don't need to fly in ahead and take out the anti-aircraft because they can't see it. You don't need to have a separate aircraft with jammers on board to fly with it, because the disadvantage is the expense and that it can only carry a certain amount of ordnance.
And once if you come into visual range of an enemy fighter, your stealth is useless.
Depending if you're what type of plane you're in. If you're in an F-117A, yes, you're totally screwed. But if you're in an F-22, hell no. F-22 will whack your ass so fast you wouldn't even believe it.
It all depends.
Well, it depends how many aircraft. Yeah, it depends how many aircraft it's up against. If it's up against 30 aircraft, it'll matter.
Four F-22s can take on 20. Let's say MiG-29s.
I don't think they can defeat that many missile threats.
Oh yeah. They've even done simulations.
I think they can only defeat one missile threat.
You may get one. You may get one F-22 knocked out of the sky, but I guarantee you, 4 F-22s will take on 20 MiG-29s or MiG-30, whatever the hell it is they got now. Su-27s, it'll smoke them so fast they won't even know what hell hit them. And then you go to a gun-to-gun fight. Gunfight to gunfight.
I think they only carry 400 rounds in their gun.
But so does an F-15. So does an F-16.
Well, in a gunfight, you're going to run out of ammo pretty quick.
The computer system on the F-22 is so damn accurate. You aren't going to pull that trigger, and when you pull the trigger, those bullets are hitting with that target. It's just that good. I mean, AGS, I don't know if you've ever seen one fly, but man, I'm telling you, it is just the craziest freaking stuff you've ever seen in your life. I mean, it's like the only thing that comes close to it is some crazy Russian-ass pilot in his plane.
I just don't think it's going to be able to defeat as many threats as it could face in an integrated hostile high-threat environment. With
even an F-14
surface-to-air missiles, and
F-14 back in the 70s could track 20 targets and launch 6 missiles.
That tracking a target isn't defeating a missile threat.
No. Listen. I'm just saying what the system could track 20 targets, launch 6 missiles simultaneously from 150 miles out, and knock those planes out of the skies. They proved it.
That's over-the-horizon combat. Well, what happens if you're stealth?
Even then, up close, the advanced, even the skin on the F-22 is actually a sensor of itself.
Look, I have no doubt that it's a badass plane. Okay, I'm just saying that the F-35 is going to be a more survivable.
The F-22 is more advanced than the F-35. The F-35 is nothing.
Well, now the F-35, and they do combat simulations with aggressor systems, and the plane where the pilot always comes back in simulated combat in high threat scenarios is the F-35, It won't last in a high threat environment like an F-35 will. The reason what the commanding general said is that the F-35 the pilots come back from the mission alive. And the other planes don't.
And the F-22 does too. The F-22 is the air superiority fighter. That means it controls the sky. Everything in the sky, it can take down from a bomber to a freaking drone.
It's also you're dealing with missile threats. It's not about just controlling the sky.
No, it's even in a gunfight. Even in a gunfight,
it's not about gunfights. It's not about gunfights. It's about
F-35
high threat environments. That means surface to air missiles.
I understand that. I understand what you're saying. But what I'm saying is the F-35 is not as stealthy and is not as sophisticated as the F-22.
Its computer system is more advanced.
More sophisticated. They don't put all that They're not putting all that into the general fighter. We only have 200 F-20, 220 some odd F-22s. They quit production on that plane because it cost.
Yeah,
And
the F-35s cost a fortune too.
Well, the only reason why the F-35 cost a fortune is because they were trying to get a shaft-driven. They were trying to harness the power of a jet engine with a drive shaft.
Yeah, I understand.
That's never been done before. I mean, the regular version, the regular Navy and the Air Force version, that's easy.
It's the computer systems that make the F-35 what it is.
And there's more advanced computers than an F-22. They don't even even at air shows. I got closer to F-35s than I've ever gotten to an F-22. F-22s, you can't even walk up within 50 feet of an F-22. They are parked on the other side of the runway. And an F-35, they got a roped up section, and you're 50 feet away from the aircraft. You never get that close to an F-22, ever. And they fly them out of DFW or at Alliance Airport at every year as a demonstration. They do not let you get near those suckers. And there are guys armed. They're armed.
Yeah, I know they have security. I mean that doesn't mean that the future isn't the F-35.
You can't get this close as you can get to an F-35. I mean, I literally can get from the house from where I'm standing right now to my neighbor across the street's house. I can get that close to an F-35. I cannot get that close to an F-22. They do not let you are on the other side.
What does it have to do with anything? Okay, what is it? Shit from Shinola. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, I'm just saying the secrecy of the aircraft. Look, they're not going to let you.
They don't want anybody to know how easy it is to shoot down. That's what it is.
They're not going to let you get closer to one than they are the other. The one they're not going to let you see is the one they're not going to let you never get near. I mean, They
used to be like that with the B-2 bomber too, but they're not anymore.
They don't even land those. They don't land those at air shows. They do overflights. They don't land those. Those fly out of Whiteman Air Force Base, right at the road, right at the highway, or right at the.
I think they had an air show in California once where they had one.
They do not land them. They did an overfly at Texas Motor Speedway one year, and the cloud level was too low for him, and all you could see was a silhouette. They don't land. You are not allowed near a B2. B-52, that's easy. B-1, no problem.
Well, I think I have a picture. I have a video. Of a B-2 at.
Yeah, B-2s are not.
Anderson.
B-2s are still advanced, highly advanced technology. That's they don't let you near that. You're not getting near a B-2.
Well, you should see my video of one.
If you're standing next to a B-2, you're not standing next to a B-2.
All right, well,
you are.
Here, I'll just put out my video and screen share it 1 second.
If you're standing next to a B-2, you got some high up the friend.
Okay, let's see. 1 second. Open.
Now, B-1, yeah. B-52, I've been underneath looked at the landing gear and both bomb bays of B-2. B-52, not B-2. But
all right, you're making me screen share my video here. Let's see if I can hit the screen share button. Come on. Oh, is it not going to let me screw? Where is it? It's not showing up in the screen share. Let's see. This is, I have to use a different program. What's this program? Is this? I'm trying to open it up with something else. Open with. Photo gallery? Yeah, I could probably do that. Okay, now let me get back to the screen share button. It's not easy to screen share this stuff, man.
Man, I look. You know more about it than me. I have no idea how to screen share it, but I do all.
Here, can you see this?
Well, yeah, that's at taxing, but I'm saying you standing next to one. That's at probably Whiteman Air Force Base.
No, this is Guam.
Okay, well.
How's that?
All the B-2s are stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri.
Well, they stop at Guam. Because
Yeah,
this is Guam.
yeah. Yeah. But I'm saying you personally cannot walk up next to the aircraft. There is no way. They will shoot you dead.
At the base, not at an air show.
No, they'll shoot you at an air show. There were
They
armed
won't shoot you at an air. Oh my goodness.
There were Fort Worth police, and there were Air Force. I don't know what the hell the Air Force calls their MPs or whatever, but there were Air Force MPs armed with M16s or M4s or whatever the hell. Then there was the Fort Worth Police Department and SWAT around the F-35s. If you crossed that rope line, they either did one thing: tackle you if you were a child, and if you were an adult, they shot you. That you do not cross that rope line. Plus, they had other airmen stationed around the rope line in sections, probably about 20 feet apart, to keep people from crossing the rope line. And you were about 50 feet away from the aircraft. You got shot. These guys were armed to the teeth, full body armor, ARs, M4s, airmen, which were not armed, to keep people from trying to cross the line. And my kid tried to run through that damn line and go up next to the airplane. And I was like, I snatched him before they got him, before he ran through the line. They have no.
All right. Well, if you're done talking about the security,
that's at a local air show, and they build the suckers right down the street.
Let's see.
They have more security around those aircraft. And I remember the first time I saw a B-1. A B-1, they wouldn't even let you within 20 feet of the airplane on the ground. And it was roped off with airmen that were loaded with M4s. They don't play no shit, dude. They had mags in them and everything. They were. You were not.
I have some pictures of security at Osan Air Base. If I could find it.
Not here in Texas. They take that shit seriously. Now, maybe this year they might let you get a little closer, but 2 years ago, no.
Well, I'll just put on my tiger stripe candle and they won't see me sneak up.
Right?
All right, let's see. Okay, I think I have some security pictures. Should be right here. Let's see, one more.
Yeah, which is funny. They don't have security guarding the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels when they fly, and those are Super Hornets and F-16s that are.
When I saw the Blue Angels, they were still flying Skyhawks.
Oh wow!
Which is what my accountant.
F-18 is pretty cool. It's a lot better than Skyhawk.
That's what my accountant used to fly in Israel, was the Skyhawks.
That's a pretty cool picture.
Yeah, you can see the guards. That's what they looked like, right?
That's an A-10.
No, I know. I mean the guard.
I can't see the guard in my picture. Hold on, I changed the phone.
Right.
He was, yes, he looked like that, but he didn't have the beret on.
Right. Well, they're in Korea. This is South Korea. Osan Air Base.
That's how they are stationed at Alliance, the Alliance Air Show around the F-35s.
I don't know what kind of helicopter that is, but
it's a Russian helicopter, I think. No, maybe not. We had some weird dual rotor chopper that was built back in the 50s like that.
Yeah, well, it is Korea.
On the screen share.
Well, I'll go back to it. Let me find it.
They had a really short, stubby tail. It was kind of, they were tilted.
That one.
They kind of went.
Can you see that squib? Can you see that squib?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not the one I'm thinking of.
Let me go back to it one more time. All right. Anybody know what kind of helicopter that is?
I used to know what it was, but
I was thinking it was that dual one that kind of cross-rotated rotors, but it's not the one I was thinking of.
All right. Sorry. I had some prepping topic that I wanted to finish off talking about, but you were so ranting about the fucking F-22, and it's like it's not an F-35. F-35 is going to be the future of air defense, not the F-22.
I disagree.
Well, you're wrong. But I had some prepping. Oh, the thing I wanted to get from Squib was what of these of all these, because you guys were talking about all the different stealth techniques, and I'm big into avoid. I'm like one of those avoid contact with the enemy kind of people. Use camouflage, avoid contact, and keep your head down if the shit hits the fan. So other than thermal protection from thermal, what other thermal camouflage, what other kinds of camouflage do any of these aircraft do? Or do any of these, what other kinds of camouflage can people use to avoid contact? Like things that are good against night vision, things that are good against anything that a government or an opposing force might use, besides just the thermal camouflage, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, thermal's hard to beat.
Well, it's not that hard to beat. Thermal isn't that hard to beat.
Well, I mean,
that's a wrong statement. You can beat thermal camouflage. There is thermal camouflage. You can be invisible to thermal camouflage if you and it doesn't take any. You can get everything you need from Home Depot to defeat thermal camouflage, and it doesn't cost that much. But you have to be prepared in advance. So if anybody else has any ideas how to of any defeat night vision and stuff like that, I'm interested in hearing them.
I would say with night vision, if you had some sort of ghillie suit or some sort of natural foliage camouflage that's in a wrap or a blanket around you, and you kept still and you kept quiet. It's just like it has been of old. I mean, people may walk right by you and never see you. I mean, I know they have sniper teams that train, and they look to see where the sniper is trying to crawl towards, and they have the trainees looking at them.
Okay, so Squib is saying it's the. Hang on a sec. Squib is saying it's the Kamov KA-20. What was that? K-22. Maybe Squib could actually type that one more time. Let me see. Okay. Kamov KA-28 Helix is what that helicopter was. Okay. All right, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no. I was just saying, I know when snipers are trying to, trainee snipers I've seen on the Discovery Channel where they classes like Fort Bragg or wherever, or Camp Lejeune or whatever, they'll have those guys, the trainees, sitting on like looking out into the woods or a field, and they're trying to pick out the infiltrating sniper, and they'll have a guy standing out there with a radio, and he says, "Hey, move to the left this much." And is that where the sniper? Is that where the bad guy?
Yeah, I saw that on Clear and Present Danger.
Well, no. Well, no. This wasn't from Clear and Present Danger. This was actually, this is real. These are the real U.S. military doing it. So it was the sniper guys trying to visually find them with their own eyes, and these.
Yeah, it's not easy with good camo. It's not easy. I was just.
It's tough
to figure out what the thermal vision is like a standard way that like buildings and bases are protected, and thermal, but you can defeat thermal. You can build a suit. you can camouflage a position from thermal so that it can't be detected with thermal.
We have materials that'll.
And it's not that expensive. You can buy everything you need at Home Depot. But I was just wondering about all any other kinds of detection, because we were talking about it as far as like what the aircraft we're using, and can any of that be translated into like anything practical for like regular old preppers? And I myself have not yet built a thermal camouflage suit, but I know how to do it. And I mean, because there's basically the company that makes them put out a video on how to do it. But they did an effectiveness video, and there's a company that actually makes them, but you can make them yourself. It's not that hard from what I could see. But it does require, you have to put some effort out, but you can beat thermal vision. You can't do it without building a thermal camouflage suit and or preparing a position to be
blankets.
Well, it's not. It's a little more complicated. It's a little more complicated than that, but
yeah, I'm sure it is. But I mean, just saying something as basic as that, maybe something very similar to, I don't know. As far as like maybe, trying to avoid which they might use in the future, is sound recognition, face, optical cameras that, or tapping into cell phone cameras locally or street cameras urbanly. I mean,
Oh yeah, well, in urban situations, yeah, where there's cameras everywhere, the facial recognition computer system.
Exactly. Your voice recognition on your phone, cell phone transmission.
Oh yeah, that I still have a Galaxy 3 that I can take out the battery of, and I haven't upgraded. Somebody was I was listening to one guy on a channel saying that the new Apple phones, they have the most EMP proof phones as far as being able to take a solar event or a EMP. The Apple phones have the best resistance to electromagnetic disturbances. But I've still got a Galaxy 3, and the only good thing about it is that I can take out the battery if I want and not be tracked without the battery.
Well, even if you don't use it, if you're nowhere near your phone, if you use a radio, a CB antenna or a CB radio, if you use a ham radio, if you use, I
have one.
Broadcast a signal, they can triangulate the position.
Well, but they won't. If it doesn't have any, or just a handheld radio isn't going to have any personally identifying features.
Correct. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, just trying to identify, hey, there's a person in this area or this position. And
right. Well, it depends if you're sitting.
Most likely, they're going to be thinking you're hostile, right? Or are they going to be thinking you need to be a rescue? I don't know.
I don't. Well, I think in a shit hits the fan situation, I think the most thing you'd be using a radio for is as part of a group to contact, somebody to say, I'm coming, don't shoot, I'm coming in, or I'll meet you at, as planned according to the plan we talked about last week, or the shit hits the fan plan, or whatever it is, to whoever your prepper friends are of your shit hits the fan team group. But unless you're organizing an assault or something, I mean, yeah, I would say if you're organizing an assault, don't use a radio. Use hand signals. But
right. And not smoke signals either. Don't use those, because even though nobody will know what the hell they mean, but supposed to be like, hey, there's fire. There's something over there. Because I guarantee you some idiot would try that. Don't use smoke signals either.
Well,
but then again, we may want to thin out the herd, with somebody that's dumb enough to use a smoke signal. They're going to use it to plan an attack. Surprise attack.
Well, you could use smoke signals.
It might be a diversion. You never know. Ooh.
Well, it was a different kind of combat back then when
Well,
they
yeah.
used smoke signals.
But somebody may try that still to this day, you know. But there's plenty of people who may not know what the hell's that. You know, then they'll be like, "Hey, let's go attack it." You know, I don't know. There's so much crap that I mean. Look, I work with guys who are in their 20s.
Well, I think the best thing for a smoke signal is to signal for a rescue with like 3 fires would be, you know, the 3 is like the sign for help or something.
Man, I couldn't tell you the first thing about sending a smoke signal other than the fact that you put a rug over the fire and poof, let the smoke out. I couldn't tell you how to send the message.
Well, you put an old tire on or a new one on a big fire, and you'll get a lot of black smoke.
Yeah, but I'm saying blocking the smoke and then sending it and all that. I couldn't tell you what the hell I was saying. He was like, "Hey, I'm here. Come this way." But you know, I would say you have your visual communications with light source. Then you have if you're looking at, I don't know, maybe you bend a branch on a tree a certain way, or you have if you're walking through an urban area, you have a piece of trash or trash can with a lid that's off or on or something, you know, some form of if you're talking about like communication, I mean, you know, this and that, you know, the lid's off the trash can, hey, the bad guys are right around the corner, or if the lid's on the trash can, hey, it's clear. I don't.
What are you? What like situation are you talking about though? I mean, using a smoke signal in.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm just
smoke signal unless it was for help, to signal for help.
Well, I mean, you know, you're trying to say like, oh, if how could they find you? You know.
Oh, well, yeah, you wouldn't use the smoke signal. Well, you know, what I was saying was how can you use any of the technologies that the aircraft use for stealth as a civilian? Are any of these stealth technologies transferable to like something that civilians could approximate and use to their advantage?
I'm sure, but
well, be specific. Don't just say yeah, I guess.
I mean, you know, you're talking like I mean, I don't know. To me, the biggest thing is that as a regular person would have to me, my own personal thing that I would think about would be the hardest thing to get rid of would be the heat signature. Because, I mean, we don't have predator camouflage to where we're invisible. We don't have, you know, we don't have any of that nowadays. And
well, you can tiger stripes make you goddamn near invisible in the jungle. I mean,
right? But I'm saying, but for infrared, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to have the human eye to see it. So, and tiger stripes.
Yeah, that's why actually the military is studying the mantis shrimp, because they can see like 100 different levels of color more than humans.
Right. So I mean, that's what I'm saying is using something that your eyes cannot see. If you're using foliage camouflage, or if you're using a ghillie suit, if you're using tiger stripes, or if you're using Marpac camo, or all that stuff, yeah, you're going to blend over with the crowd. But your body heat,
right? I can eventually get you some information on how to create a thermal camouflage if you were interested.
Oh no, that'd be cool. Because I mean, I know you said you can buy this stuff at Home Depot to defeat it, but it's like, you know, that's the first I've ever heard of it. And
well, I get around a little bit more than you.
Oh yeah, I mean, but other than a bathtub full of ice cubes and ice cold water,
you're dealing with somebody who like binge watches prepper videos for fun. So yeah, I know how to build. I know how to make thermal camo, but I'll get you.
I mean, I know how to disguise myself from the predator. You know,
the predator drone or the predator in the film.
No, the predator in the movie. I just rub mud all over.
Well, you're more likely to face predator drone trying to figure out where you are.
Well, and you know what? Honestly, the Arnold and the guys in the movie weren't onto a bad idea. I mean, would the mud actually kind of lower your heat signature? I'm sure there are some muds on the earth that might. Maybe there is. I don't know. It wouldn't. The worst thing that can happen is they're going to.
You can't walk around in the jungle soaking wet with mud because you'll get sick and die without anybody having to shoot you. So,
Mud also does protect your skin, right?
They have suntan lotion for that. But if you're wearing a BDU, you aren't going to need to worry about that. So I would just say that I'll get you some information. I'll try and email you some links and stuff on thermal camo if you're interested.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants me to, I'll leave a message. I'll just post a comment on the video, and I'll reply back to your channel with some links for thermal camo. All right. Well, Squib, it was time for him to go to sleep, so we're gonna call this one a show because it's time to get to the chopper. So get to the chopper. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Stay safe. Keep prepping, and we'll see you next week.